Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees. Welcome to the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be covering Canto 12, Chapter 9. Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi says the illusory potency of the Lord. Please join us for Jai Radha Mother prayers. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Jai Krishna, dear devotees, please join us for Mangalacharan prayers together. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nārāyaṇam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirye shratam swakatha Kṛṣṇa punya śravana kirtanaha hridayantasto bhadrani vidunoti suhasatam nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavatir Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki. Hare Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam study class today. And today we'll be covering Canto 12, Chapter 9. So just 5 more chapters remaining till the end of the canto. Verse 1. Sutta Uvacha
Sutta Uvacha
Samstuto Bhagavanitham
Sanstuto Bhagavanitham
Mārkaṇḍeyena dhīmata
Mārkaṇḍeyena dhīmata
Nārāyaṇo Narasakha
Nārāyaṇo Narasakha
Prīta aha Bhagudvayam
Prīta aha Bhrigudviham.
Sutta Uvacha. Sutta Goswami said, Samstutaha, properly glorified, Bhagavan, the Supreme Lord, Itham, in this way, Mārkaṇḍeyena, by Mārkaṇḍeya, Dhīmata, the intelligent sage, Nārāyaṇa, Lord Narayan, Narasakha, the friend of Nara, Prītaha, satisfied, Aha, spoke, Bhrigu Udvaham, to the most eminent descendant of Bhrigu. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sutta Goswami said, the Supreme Lord Narayan, the friend of Nara, was satisfied by the proper glorification offered by the intelligent sage Mārkaṇḍeya. Thus the Lord addressed that excellent descendant of Bhrigu. Text 2, so there is no purport, so we'll just cover the next text. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Mārkaṇḍeya, you are indeed the best of all learned Brahmanas. You have perfected your life by practicing fixed meditation upon the Supreme Soul, as well as by focusing upon me, your undeviating devotional service, your austerities, your study of the Vedas, and your strict adherence to regulative principles. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Text 3. We are perfectly satisfied with your practice of lifelong celibacy. Please choose whatever benediction you desire, since I can grant your wish. May you enjoy all good fortune. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the Lord used the plural form in the beginning of this verse, we are satisfied, because he was referring to himself along with Shiva and Uma, who will later be glorified by Mārkaṇḍeya. The Lord then used the singular, I am the bestower of benedictions, because ultimately only Lord Narayan, Kṛṣṇa, can award the highest perfection of life, eternal Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Please join us for Guru Pranati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyatya Deshitarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukham Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Dīnataranam Hare Kṛṣṇa 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 Hare 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 Rāma 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 Hare 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 Kṛṣṇa, dear devotees. So, after 12.7 chapter, Shaunaka Rishi was little worried. So he incited Sutta Goswami at Naimisharanya to start telling about the amazing story of Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi. So in the 2nd through 5th verse in the previous chapter, Shaunaka Rishi is showing his astonishment that how could Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi could have lived through 2 days of Lord Brahma. And here we understand how to take shelter, because he had taken proper shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And how he is showing by his example, so we are going to cover from that point onwards. So for folks who have not been there in the previous class, so I'll briefly cover in 2 minutes what was the context. So as Shaunaka Rishi, he incites Sutta Goswami. So Sutta Goswami, he starts describing that Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi was a perfect brahmachari. He was very obedient as a disciple in brahmacharya. So again, for lifelong he stays brahmachari. That's another aspect he stresses. And then he says that he would go out to beg alms, and whatever he would get in donation, he would bring and give it to his spiritual master. And if his spiritual master doesn't call on him, then he would just fast for the day. And with the fast, it reminds me that today is Parama Ekadashi. Parama Ekadashi ki Jai. And on this Ekadashi, we don't fast. It is on Dwadashi that the fasting occurs. So that's also a very interesting fact. And this is in the Purushottam Mass. So we can understand that the potency already in every day is 1000 times in Purushottam Mass. And then the potency on engaging in devotional service is 1000 times than any other day of the month. So that is 1000 times 1000. That's a million times. I think you cannot get a better bargain than that. Especially in this age, Kali age. And all we have to do is raise our arms and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa 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 Hare 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 Rāma 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 Hare Hare. And we could chant all night and we will not be tired, because it's such a wonderful, melodious blessing that we are praying to the Lordship. Just like Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, he was visited by Nārāyaṇa Rishi, who are none other than expansion of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. And we have talked about the birth story of Nārāyaṇa Rishi. Yesterday we also talked about the birth story of Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, as how he was supposed to have an Alpayu, very short life. Yet at the same time, by the mercy of Lord Shiva and his father, he was able to get a benediction to stay lifelong in a young body, means his body does not age beyond 16 years. So that was on his birthday of 16 years, that's where he stayed all his life. And he had lived through 2 days of Brahma. So in the previous day he was born, and in this day, after 6 Manus, the 7th Manu, Vaivasvata Manu's reign is there, and he is still there. So when Indra came to know that Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi is performing great austerities, so as we heard, how did he perfect himself? This is Nārayaṇa Rishi himself is addressing, that he is very satisfied with Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi and the 5 characteristics he lists. And what are those 5 characteristics? He is identifying that you have practically fixed meditation upon the Supreme Soul, right? Paramatma, Super Soul in the heart. and Lord Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Soul. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Second is that he has focused upon Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, his undeviating devotional service. Srila Prabhupada really liked this word unalloyed, right? Pure devotional service. There is no mixing. He was perfectly carrying out his devotional service based on time, place and circumstances. Everything was regulated. And then the third aspect was his austerities. Can you imagine, means as a brahmachari, he would only eat once a day. And sometimes when his spiritual master would not call on him, he would not even eat then. He would just fast for the day. And then fifth is, he sincerely studied the Vedas. He was, learning the Vedas from his spiritual master, and he was studying it to understand it, right? And to understand what is the purpose of life and how to perfect in this very life. So that was his purpose. He was not studying Vedas to get name, fame and glories. He was basically studying to advance in spiritual knowledge. Last but not the least is by strictly adherence to the regulative principles. So there are 4 legs of dharma, religion. So he was performing all of those. He was well established in following his regulative principles. And so the 4 legs of dharma are austerity, cleanliness, mercy and truthfulness. So he was very much carrying out on those paths. And the regulative principles is basically as per the prescribed samskaras and everything he was following. So by following this, he satisfied Nārāyaṇa Rishi so much, right? Everybody goes to the temple to see God. But here, in case of Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, God came to see him. Nārāyaṇa Rishi from Bhadrika Ashram, they walked all the way to see Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi. And as soon as Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi saw them, so why did, Nārāyaṇa Rishi want to see him? That is also an important question. It just so happened that Indra became insecure that Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi is performing so much austerity, he is going to take my seat, right? He is going to take my position. So in this material world, we learn that no place is safe, right? Everywhere there is anxiety. Misery is there in one form or another. So Indra is very insecure, and seeing such great austerities being performed by Rishi Mārkaṇḍeya. And so he sends who? He sends Cupid along with Apsaras, the dancing girls, the Gandharvas. And he sends the son of passion, which is greed and ignorance, right? So again, he is sending intoxication as the son of ignorance, personified. These are personified, form. And just so that to sway Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi away from his austerities, away from his, great devotion and so forth. Yet at the same time, they are not able to shake him. Rather, in due course of time, as they are trying to lure him away, they realize he is too powerful. And now he may fire back, right? So sometimes when you are with an opponent and you are fighting, but the opponent is staying quiet, then sometimes you realize that I have been fighting and nothing is happening to this person. You realize that if nothing is happening to this person, I am putting my full strength. What must be the strength of this person? Right? Sahanshilta, so that ability to tolerate others is a great quality, it's a virtue. So we should try to develop tolerance in our life. And humility also, not seeking name, fame and glories. So Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, by his own example, is showing how to be tolerant and how to be humble. And then they became scared. As if they had, like children when they play with a snake which is sleeping, suddenly the snake wakes up. You can imagine what will be the state of the children. They will be running hither thither, trying to understand how to, save themselves from the snake. So similarly, Cupid and his followers, they were scared. And they asked for forgiveness, and he smiled, and then he told them that tell Indra there is no need to be worried. And so when they went back, Indra was astonished. He was surprised that such an austere person, and yet at the same time such a humble and tolerant person. And this aspect, to be simple, humble, tolerant, being austere, engaging in the austerity of mind, body and speech, always seeing positive things, never thinking bad of anyone, always giving respects to all, not expecting any respect from others. This is a great quality which attracts the heart of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. So Lord was already residing in the form of Nārāyaṇa Rishi. So they, when they heard about, Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, they wanted to see him. So they came to see Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi. Everybody goes to see God. Now God is coming to see a devotee of his. Now that is glory. That is his glories, right? So when they came, Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi immediately bowed down to them, welcomed them by paying obeisances, washed their feet, offered them arghya water, offered them sandalwood paste and various offerings, worshipped them, and he sang prayers. So this is where that chapter ends and this chapter starts. And now Lord Narayan, he says, Narayan Rishi, that we are very satisfied. So when he says we, Srila Vishwachakravarti Thakur is explaining that this we refers to not just Narayan Rishi but also to Shiva and Uma Devi and Parvati Devi. So they will be meeting Mārkaṇḍeya later on and he will be glorifying them and he will be getting their blessings as well. So, when Narayan Rishi is referring, he is referring that Mārkaṇḍeya, we are very satisfied. So all four personalities are very satisfied. And then he says, please ask because I can give you. So everything comes from Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. It is said in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Kṛṣṇa tells Arjuna that even people who worship demigods, they worship me indirectly because it is I who actually allows those boons to be fulfilled through the demigods. Right? So again, this is also very important. And in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes people get attracted even there, which is like, Amal Purana, that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, if one, wants, very able husband, then they perform, Sola Somvar. There are so many other rituals are there in India. And over there, they're talking about, Srila Prabhupada talks about in the purport of different demigods being worshipped for different reasons. And people get attracted. But then, when they come to the second canto, they realize that, wait a minute, even the demigods are temporary in the material creation. So who is the one who is always permanent? And the absolute truth is where the search starts. And here, Narayan Rishi is asking Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi to ask for a boon. And Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, he glorifies them. He says that just who can be more fortunate than me? Just by looking, taking, being able to see your lotus feet, glimpse of your lotus feet, Lord Brahma gets his position. So he is glorifying that I am so fortunate that I get to see whole of you, Narayan Rishi, both of you, with my present eyes, and you have come to my door. So he is calling himself very fortunate in a humble mood, right? And when he is glorifying, both the lords, they are smiling because they already have an idea what he is going to ask. And it is very interesting that when Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi says that I do not need anything, yet at the same time, I want to see your illusory energy, Maya Devi. So now at this, Sri Narayan Rishi, he smiled ruefully, like a father who doesn't want his son to go through trouble. So he tries to instruct, but at the same time, when the son is so inclined that he asks for it, then the father says, well, it's not a big deal. Let the kid go through this experience, a troublesome experience, and learn their own lessons, right? Learn his own lesson. So with that mood, Narayan Rishi says, so be it. Understanding that this is not a desirable thing. Yet at the same time, he wants to go through it, I will allow it. Yet at the same time, under his protection. So that is Lord's mercy. This reminds me of a couple of other instances where Cupid incites, and sometimes the personalities who are able to defeat Cupid, they become too proud, right? And there is one instance given of Devashi Narad. Once he was coming, after visiting Vaikuntha, and he had seen the beautiful form of Radha Krishna at Rasa Mandal as well. As he was returning, he was singing glories, and at that time, Cupid tried to attack on Devashi Narad. And Devashi Narad said, why are you trying to attack me? I am just a, brahmachari, I am just a sage trying to perform my devotional service. And seeing this, Kamdev, he says, okay, no problem. He goes away. Yet at the same time, seeing that Kamdev has gone away, Devashi Narad became very proud. And at that time, he felt like, oh, I have defeated Kandarpa, Cupid. So I am so powerful. And so he comes wandering on planet Earth, and there he sees a beautiful city. And he goes to that city, very nice city, very well structured city. And the citizens seems to be very nice citizens. Everyone is very happy. He goes to the king palace, and the king gets up from his throne. And he comes down, he welcomes Devashi Narad, sits him on his throne, worships him, washing his feet nicely with all paraphernalia. He worships Devashi Narad. Devashi Narad is feeling very nice. And then he calls his daughter, the king calls his daughter, to serve. And then when Devashi Narad sees this beautiful girl, he is immediately attracted to this princess. But he doesn't say anything. And then he inquires about the king, so what is the next set of affairs that you engage in? The king is saying, actually I have sent out invitations to all the kings and princes in this nearby region to come for Swayamvar. And day after tomorrow is the Swayamvar of my daughter. So Devashi Narad says, may you have a very nice son-in-law. And saying that, he is thinking, may I be your son-in-law, right? And he departs, right, after blessing the king and his daughter. And where does he go? He goes back to Vaikuntha. And he says to the Lord Vishnu, he says, please, my dear Lord, you have such a beautiful form. I want the form of Hare like yours, right? Now, when he asks for this, he says the word Hare, Hari's form. So, Lord says, so be it. Now, Hare, while refers to Lord Vishnu, one of its meaning is also monkey. So, he gets a monkey face, but he doesn't know, he has not seen the mirror yet. And he immediately departs for that city, that this is the day of Swayamvar, I should better go there. And so he goes to this arena of Swayamvar, and he is standing in the front. As soon as the princess will come, she will look at my beautiful form and she will garland me. And when the princess comes, along with her girlfriends, and holding this Varmala in her hand, she sees that there is a personality with a monkey face standing. So she's like somehow smiling. He's thinking that, oh, she's feeling shy. And then she moves to the next person. And he feels like, oh, she did not see me. So he goes and runs later on in the line. He stands again. Now, when this time the princess comes and looks at him, like again he was there, now he has come over here, her girlfriend starts giggling a bit because they know what is going on. But Devashi Narad doesn't know. He's thinking that he is appearing just like Lord Vishnu. Beautiful bluish form, four-arm form with perfect features and everything. And the girl, the princess, she moves to the next prince, and he's like, maybe she didn't see me properly. And similarly, he's going from one spot to another spot to another spot. And by the time, she has gone till the end, and she has not garlanded anyone. And at that time, Lord Vishnu appears in the center of the assembly hall. And at that time, the princess goes and she garlands Lord Vishnu. And Devashi Narad becomes upset. Hare Kṛṣṇa. So Devashi Narad, he gets upset. And he says, and then he realizes, what am I looking for? If he is looking like Lord Vishnu, what do I look for? And he looks at his face in the mirror and he says, oh, I have a monkey face. And so Lord Vishnu, he smiles and he says, my dear Lord, you cheated me. I asked for your form, Hari's form. And he said, yes, Hare also means monkey. So I gave you what you asked for. And then suddenly everything vanishes. And Devashi Narad realizes, what was it? It was Lord's illusory potency, which was much beyond the potency of Kandarpa, the Cupid. So that's why Lord Kṛṣṇa is also known as Madana Mohana, because he can even enchant the Cupid. So people who cannot be enchanted by Cupid, they get enchanted by Lord Kṛṣṇa. So here Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi has asked the boon to be able to see Lord's illusory potency. Lord did not want it, but at the same time he said, okay, I will allow it. Just like an affectionate father allows the son to go through, yet at the same time provide protection. So in this way, Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, having received this boon, after giving the boon to Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi and Nārāyaṇa Rishi, they depart back to their Badrika ashram. And Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi continues to perform his daily activities. Now, since he had seen the form of the Lord, he was meditating on the beautiful form, and because of the love, sometimes he would become irregular in his devotional service. He would sometimes get delayed because he's constantly absorbed in remembering the beautiful form of Nārāyaṇa Rishi. He would forget things, so there was some deviations happening. And once, while he was at the river, after the bath and so forth, he sees that suddenly there is great wind is blowing, very, strong winds are blowing. And all of a sudden there are various kind of clouds are gathering in the sky. And then there's torrential rain, and the rain is falling with so much weight as if, the wheels of the cars, like that weight they're feeling is falling on them, on everyone. And Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi is surprised. He's trying to find shade and shelter as he's trying to stay alive out of the rain. Yet at the same time he sees that from the four sides the ocean has started coming up with strong waves, and it's inundating all of land, mountains, continents. Everything is getting inundated in waters. And he's surprised what is going on. This is pralaya. He knows that this is dissolution time. So he is trying to survive, and what does he see? That while the waters and the waves are constantly hitting him hard, there are makara and timingala fishes. They are trying to devour him, and he is trying to run away from them. And it just so happens that everything, all other living entities have been destroyed. There is this reference given that the Chaturvidham, there are four sources of birth. That's not taking place anymore for the conditioned souls. And what are these four sources? Living entities in this material world, they take birth, they get body through, this birth happens through four ways. First is embryo, like that of human beings. Second is through eggs, like in the case of birds. Third is like seeds in the case of trees and plants. And fourth is perspiration, from the sweat and perspiration, the body secretions basically. That's what it refers to. And so complete annihilation is happening. And not just earth is filled in, even the heavens are filled with water. The outer space is filled with water. The water is inundating the whole universe. And there are these giant, aquatics. They are fighting with each other. And Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi is running away from them, as they are attacking him as well. He's trying to survive. And for millions of years, he is in the waters of dissolution, trying to, stay alive. And it just so happens that because of this state, it is in complete darkness. And sometimes he is feeling somewhat, relieved, and most of the time he is feeling distressed, in anxiety, in fear. He is running hither and thither. He is just trying to stay alive. And in that state, he is somehow, passing his time. And it is very difficult for him to say what is water and what is sky. It appears that there is water everywhere. He has no clue how he is going to survive. And he is feeling there are happenings like he gets sick. He is, struggling. He is weak. He is feeling like he is about to die. But he is somehow struggling and struggling. And finally, it appears to him that he is completely like as if he is sleepwalking. He is feeling like he is, floating in the water in complete sleep, almost unconscious state, and highly tormented in this ocean of dissolution, the waters of dissolution. And at that time, suddenly he sees an island, right? So if you're constantly in water, an island is a great sight. But then you want to see if on the island, if there is any vegetation or anything. What does he see? He sees a banyan tree. He is very much attracted. Wow. So he is approaching, he's swimming towards the banyan tree. What does he see? On the northeastern side of the banyan tree, on a leaf, there is a small bluish boy, baby, lying on the curl of the leaf. And this bluish boy, his bodily effulgence is literally, driving away all the darkness. Now when you hear this, immediately in our mind it comes,
Kṛṣṇa Surya Sama Maya here Andhakara, Jahan Kṛṣṇa Tahan Nahi Maya Radhikara. So in this ocean of dissolution appears like all illusory potency, yet at the same time Kṛṣṇa is there. So there is no influence of Maya. So Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi is swimming towards the baby. He wants to approach the baby and he is seeing the baby's beautiful form. And what is baby doing? Baby is holding his toe with his finger and sucking on the toe. Now you must have seen the small kids doing this. Now it is very interesting that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains that Lord is, sucking on his toe, the big toe of his foot, wondering what is the sweetness, what is the nectar that my devotees feel in serving my lotus feet. So he wants to taste his own, the nectar from his own toe. So that's why he is doing this action. And we have seen so many times small babies, they just pick up the toe, the big toe from the and leg, and they put it in their mouth. So that is what the baby is doing, this bluish baby. And how big is he? He's just enough to be on a small banyan leaf, that big. So Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, approaches him, and it just so happens that as the boy inhales, the baby inhales, Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi is pulled into in his breath and enters into his body, just like a mosquito enters into a body. With that force, he is surprised. And then as he goes inside the baby, he sees that everything is as it was. He is in front of his ashram, he is seeing all the rishis, he is seeing all kind of moving and non-moving beings, he is seeing everything as it was before. And he is perplexed. He is seeing that yes, there are humans, he is seeing that there are animals, he is seeing there are aquatics, he is seeing that there are birds, there are, even demonic people are there. He sees the time personified, how days are passing. And he is in this astonishment. Suddenly he is pulled out. And now as the baby exhales, he is thrown out from the body of the baby back into the ocean of dissolution. And he is again in the waters. Then he realizes that this is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And now in the third canto of chapter 33 of third canto, the fourth verse is where Devahuti, Mother Devahuti, is telling her own son, Lord Kapildev, who is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that my dear Supreme Personality, you have taken birth from my abdomen, right? And oh my Lord, how is it possible that the Supreme One, who has in his belly the whole cosmic manifestation? The answer is that it is possible because at the end of this millennium, you lie down on a leaf, on a banyan leaf of a banyan tree, and just like a small baby, you lick the toe of your lotus feet, just trying to taste the nectar that the devotees are relishing when they are serving your lotus feet. So there is transcendental bliss right in the shelter of Lord's lotus feet. That is a very important lesson. So we need to take shelter of Lord's lotus feet. That is the only shelter. Just like we see here, Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi is again thrown into dissolution because he is far from the Lord. And now as he approaches to the Lord, just to embrace him, understanding that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I have never seen such a beautiful form. I must hold him, I must worship him. As he approaches, suddenly the baby vanishes, the banyan tree vanishes, the island vanishes, the whole waters of dissolution, the whole ocean vanishes, and he is back at his hermitage, exactly as it was before. He is so perplexed. Now, he cannot understand what has happened, but he understands that by the mercy of Nārāyaṇa Rishi, he has had the vision of Lord's illusory potency. So what is illusion? Illusion is thinking that this material world is separate from Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Right? In reality, this illusion that I can enjoy my senses by engaging with sense objects is an illusion. The reality is, Lord is called Rishikesh, master of the senses. He gives pleasure to our senses. That's why he is also called Govinda. How? When we serve his senses, when we please Him by our devotion service, then our senses are satisfied. Then our senses experience transcendental bliss. So the formula has to be understood properly, right? If we do not understand the formula and we try to speculate it, then we are going to get reactions based on that wrong formula, which is, it will cause us to go through, many sinful reactions if we try to just engage in a sense gratification. So this is where Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi gets the vision, and we saw as how, he was not proud like Devashi Narad was. He just was curious, and then he learned his lesson. Now this, when Sutta Goswami is explaining this, what has happened is, he is explaining that Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi was being tormented, being constantly in agitated, fearful anxiety, not for one day, not for 1 year, not for 100 years. He was in that ocean of waters of desolation for 4,320,000,000 earthly years. Now that nobody wants. So yes, Shaunaka Rishi, while he is saying that he is in the same, he is also descendant of Bhrigu, I am also descendant of Bhrigu, and how come he has such a long life? Then Nārāyaṇa Rishi have revealed that secret, that he is performing his devotional service very nicely. He is carrying out his regulative principles, he is following them very nicely. He is studying Vedas, he is studying scriptures. And Srimad Bhagavatam is Amal Puran. It is the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge. So here is where Nārāyaṇa Rishi blessed Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi. Beautiful picture. And then here is where Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi sees Lord lying on a banyan leaf, and sucking on his big toe. Such a beautiful form. And of course, this is where Sutta Goswami ends this chapter, and the next chapter we will be hearing as how Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi gets the mercy of Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati, Uma Devi. So this is where this chapter ends. But important aspect is that we should understand that the only shelter is the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa Surya Sama Maya He Andhakara. Lord Kṛṣṇa is like the sun, and Maya is like the darkness. So in the presence of sun there cannot be any darkness. Jaha Kṛṣṇa taha nahi Maya Radhikara. So there cannot be any influence of darkness when there is sun. Now in Mārkaṇḍeya Puran there is a very nice story that comes, and sometimes people assume that that story relates to Mārkaṇḍeya Rishi, but no, that story relates to Mandavya Rishi. So he is a different Rishi, and it happens in Mārkaṇḍeya Puran. So again, we don't have time on this particular occasion, but we'll cover that story. But Mārkaṇḍeya Puran is another very nice Puran. It's in a mode of passion that we'll get chance. We'll cover it on another occasion. Again, that is as big as Srimad Bhagavatam. So, in the similar phase. And here, to take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa, all we have to do is to engage in devotional service. But devotional service is not a right, it's a privilege. So, to be able to avail this privilege, we have to call out to the Lordship in a prayerful mood. And how is that prayerful mood attained? Very simple. That's the verse 3 of Shishya Ashtaka given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tranadapi shuni chena tarorapi sahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Thinking oneself to be more humble than the grass on the street, more tolerant than the tree, not expecting any respect from others, but ready to give all respect to others. In this mood, one can chant constantly. So this prayer is chanting, right? Chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Parama Ekadashi ki jai. My dear devotees, please keep on chanting. Srila Prabhupada gave simple mantra. Chant and be happy. Hare Kṛṣṇa, please join us for Narasimha Dev prayers. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Nitaya Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, शिला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताय गो प्रेमानंदे। हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.